can always tell people that you see the Hollywood sign closer.
That's true. We're very close to the Hollywood sign.
You can feel the place.
Yes. I always think it's funny as I drive up the street that I see that before I come in here and talk about what I talk about. So today we're going to be talking about symbols and words and the power that they contain within themselves. And I had like a pretty big breakthrough with symbol power with my second daughter when she was learning how to read. And I don't know if any of you guys have kids, and when they learn how to talk and read, you can see like how words affect human beings. Because these are people that, you know, they've never seen this stuff before. So it goes into their eyes and you can see it, like, you can see their brains like making it make stuff. It's pretty neat. And so there was at one point, I was teaching my daughter and I held up a drawing like this. And she was like 2 years old and she goes, pig, you know. And this was so interesting to me because she's never seen a pig. She'd never been to a farm and seen a pig animal, okay? So she had no idea like what the visceral, physical experience of a pig is, which is like a pretty, like, you know, it's a pretty big experience if you were to actually experience a pig. It's like this big thing, it's dirty, it's loud, it's smelly, you know. And yet, when you show her this, she knows pig, you know. So that, and this is just like some circles, really. Some circles and some lines. And then that's a pig. That's crazy. If you look at like a real pig, and then you think like circles and lines and then pig. So I like to find out like how does that happen? How does it go from circles and lines to an actual thing in our brains that then can be made real, right? And as simple as it may seem, that little idea with the little pig, that's actually like one of the big mysteries of creation in the universe and magic is how do we put together a bunch of symbols and lines and then have a thing that's real in the world, right? It all really just goes back to pigs. Like I can show you guys, if I show you guys like this symbol, that's like a pen that just made like 2 lines. That puts so much stuff in your head, right? Just when your eyes see that, your whole head is like full of stuff all of a sudden, right? What if I show you guys like a symbol, this one's very naughty, are you guys ready? What if I show you something like this? Oh, now there's like all kinds of other stuff in your head, right? And the stuff in your guys' head is probably way different than the stuff in maybe some other people's head, right? And the same with cross, right? Cross means a lot of different things in different people's heads. But what is this? It's a bunch of lines on a piece of paper, right? It's really just geometry if you break it down. And yet, those pieces of geometrical lines can evoke a very emotional, real, physical response, right? So some lines, some geometrical shapes have the power to evoke an emotional response from people. That's pretty crazy. And you know, if you take it to another level, right, I mean with words, if you were looking like a book, it's really just a bunch of geometrical shapes, and those can evoke immense emotional responses. They can shape nations of people, right? They can shape thousands of years. Like if you look at the Bible, like the geometrical shapes in the Bible, how many thousands of years are formulated by geometrical shapes? It's pretty powerful business, right? When it has that kind of lasting effect. You know, I can show you guys a symbol like this. What do you guys think about when you see this?
Wow.
Maybe what you guys think about is different than what I think about. Is different than what my daughter, who likes the pig, thinks about, right? But it's still, this thing is a symbol, right? It's a symbol of me. But then what's that? And it's good because we all symbolize ourselves in different ways. So it's really important to understand the power of how are we symbolizing ourselves and using words that have that much power, shapes, you know. to evoke emotional responses from people just based on geometrical symbols of how we're representing ourselves. So, of course, I always start with a big word nerd trail, as usual, which tends to extend throughout the lecture. So, the first one is the word symbol, right? And I always get frustrated. I really like this symbol dictionary. It's pretty good. It was written by some French guys, and they don't have the word symbol in here, which is so stupid, right? I think you have dictionary symbols, but you don't have symbol in there. Pretty dumb. But so I had to go and look for it other places, and the word symbol itself, the etymology, means that which is thrown or cast together. Sounds kind of sloppy, right? You just kind of stick it together, and then it's good. That's a symbol, right? And that seems kind of arbitrary unless you know the story of where that word comes from. So we always got to track stuff down. So does anybody know like the history of the word symbol, like where that comes from? Anybody heard this one before? Okay, good. So it's new, it's fresh. The word symbol comes from Hermes. You guys, everybody knows who Hermes is, right? Everybody should know Hermes. So Hermes was like walking on the beach, and he was thinking in his head, he's like, I wish there was something that could express how I feel right now. He was making a wish, and he wanted something to show how he felt. And at that moment, when he had that thought, he saw on the beach a turtle shell, an empty turtle shell. And in his head, he thought, symbol, like eureka, symbol. That thing is the thing I was thinking that's going to help me express what I'm feeling. And you guys know what he did with the turtle shell? He made the lyre, which was the first musical instrument. So from the word symbol, there's a couple of things. We see that it's something that provides to be like something that we're thinking. It's an embodiment of the same thought that we're having. And it's also music, which is so good. I know you guys, maybe you guys don't think this way, but a lot of people don't affiliate music with words and with symbols. They think it's like different for whatever reason. But as I always say, every letter is a number, is a sound, is a frequency, is a color, right? They're all interchangeable, same thing. You take letter A, that's a 1. Letter 1 has a frequency, has a color, has a shape. 1 is a line, 3 is a triangle, 4 is a square. So we can get all kinds of stuff just from like these geometrical shapes that we have. We can get music and songs. So how do you get like music to be a symbol? Well, music can show what you're feeling. You guys know, like, okay, let's say you had a really bad breakup, and so you put on Cure, or like Bauhaus, or like, whatever super slouchy music you want to listen to when somebody breaks your heart. And that evokes a sympathetic feeling, right? Listening to those sounds, to those words, it has a physical effect on your heart, on your body, on your flesh. The words that the person is saying, actually alters the chemistry inside your body. Okay? So that kind of symbolic representation, what happens then? All of a sudden it's real. It's real in your body, in your flesh, that moment. This thing that was like recorded on some unless you're cool and have records, it's on some crappy plastic CD. Because everybody should have records. I'm sure everybody here has records. Or it's on like a magnetic strip, right? It's recorded on this magnetic strip that you stick in your closet at the bottom of the box until every time your heart is broken, and then you go and you take it through the box, and you find that cure tape, and then you put it in the machine, and then you make it go, and then your body lives it again, right? It evokes that similar thing. It becomes a reality, this symbolic word that's entering your ear. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, that's like totally crazy to think about, that we have this ability to store and contain emotional like sequences. To basically all your CDs that are kind of stored on your shelf are this series of emotional, physical, experiential storage, right? So that's like sci-fi to me. If you guys go home and look at your entire shelf of all the music that you have, you can actually even probably pinpoint and recall physical experiences, smells, tastes, people, sounds, places that you lived that will like get evoked through the symbolism of that music that you were listening to at that time, right? And all just from like pushing a little play button on your little technological device that you have there, right? It's this carnal storage unit response. I know it makes it a lot less special because we all want to think that like, no, I understand the Cure. They're singing to me. It's my story. It's my love, my heartbreak. But no, it's like, that's why everybody loves the Cure, right? Everybody loves the Cure, right? I guess there's a lot of people that don't like the Cure. I like to think that everybody does. But so then you get to this point, oh, you don't like the Cure. Okay, it's all right. Okay, so then we get to this thing. So the symbol then, okay, how is that possible? How does this thing, how is it like another thing? How is it like this thing I'm feeling? So then we go more word nerding, right? So then I get to the word like. You know, like a lot of people in LA say the word like a lot, which is pretty funny. Like, why that word? Why like, you know? Like is a pretty funny word because you kind of smile when you say it, like. It's a very cheerful word, emotionally. And so I look it up, and the definition, this is so crazy, is with a corresponding body. With a corresponding body. That means with the same form, with the same shape, with the same flesh, right? And we all remember correspond. Correspond comes from coer, which is heart. Respond, heart response. With a heart responding body. That's so good. What a good word. Like, with a heart responding body. So if you say something is like something, it has the same heart response. Sympathy. If you say I like you, that same heart response. Like, yeah, your heart is down with my heart. You like the Cure? I like the Cure too. It's the same heart. Right? So it's a sympathetic resonance when you say something is like something else, right? But then, how can something be like something else, right? We're all so special. We're all snowflakes, right? We all have different fingerprints. How can you be like me? You're not like me. You're so different looking, right? How is who you are like this? How are you like this? You know? How does that go down? Seems impossible when we think about it in our heads, and that's how we keep from liking things. When you don't like things, like, I don't like you. You don't have the same heart as me. You don't know me. You don't know who I am, man. You know? That's how we start all that business, and that's how we start separating, right? No more like, I don't like you anymore. Heart's not like my heart. Get away from me, you know? And that, I really think, has a lot to do with image and how we see ourselves and what we think we are. Because if you think we're not like each other, like Ted, you don't look much like me, okay? But so, what about if we look at ourselves when we were zygotes? I bet our zygotes look a lot the same. And once everybody here in this room was a zygote, and we all looked exactly the same as zygotes. Right? There was like no difference between my zygote and your zygote. You know? And they didn't look different until way later and all this stuff had happened. You know? Or what about if my skeleton and your skeleton were put together, we probably look way similar than we do now. Maybe not exactly the same, because there's, you know, some weird stuff with teeth. You know, teeth are always weird. I don't know if you guys think about your teeth. They're pretty weird. And, you know, hips and stuff like that. But we would look way more the same. And actually, someday, maybe scientists will identify us all, the alien scientists will identify us all as the same because of our bones. You know, like we do with the Neanderthals. They're not going to see me or Ted. They're just going to be like, oh, that's a Neanderthal. So suddenly we're way more alike than we thought we were right now, you know. Which, of course, is hard because then we're like way less special, you know. But again, sometimes this special business isn't necessarily so good. So when you don't like the cure, just remember that the cured zygotes were a lot like your zygote. It'll help when you're listening to the music. That physicality of being like something else, the physical nature of the symbol, is a really good thing to talk about today, being Easter. In the Christian sense, even though you guys know Easter was stolen from the pagans. They just took the day because they can't have goddesses, so they have to make it about Jesus. But basically, what happens on Easter, you know, Jesus rises from the dead. You know, he comes back and then he ascends into heaven. And Jesus is a really good one to talk about when we talk about symbols. Because first of all, people have pictures of Jesus up everywhere, which is so dumb, because Jesus was an iconoclast. You guys know what iconoclast is? Like, you know, did you guys read in the news when those Muslims bombed the Buddha statues in Afghanistan? They were like 1,000-year-old Buddha statues. You guys remember that? It was like, what? So rude, you know? But they bombed them because in many religions, it's forbidden to make something like something else. And specifically, the forbidden part comes in when you try to make something like, what? Like a person. They don't care about dogs and cats and birds. You can draw those guys, but as soon as you try to draw a person, they get really upset. And especially like specific people. Like, are any of you guys Jewish in here? So you guys know, like, the graven image thing? Okay, so one of my Hasidic Jew friends, you know, he was a painter. But he was not allowed, not permitted to paint paintings of his rabbis. Because it was now a graven image. And this is, I know it sounds dumb today because we all take pictures of ourselves on our iPhone and they're all over Facebook and stuff like that. So we're like, oh, who cares? There's like some image of me from blah, blah, blah. But that's actually like very sacrilegious in some cultures to represent a human being in that nature in history. And part of, like, do you guys know the story of Muhammad and like how he kind of came in and destroyed the Jewish temple? This is a big deal because, you know, the apocalypse is going to happen at the Dome on the Rock. You guys know that? It's going to be about the Ark of the Covenant. Just wait. So the whole thing with the Dome on the Rock and all that business that happens over in Israel, a lot of it, when Muhammad came into the Jewish temple, so there was a temple, you know, that was very sacred. It was Solomon's temple. He destroyed all of the statues that had images and faces on them. He cut up all the ones that had faces of people, all the gods and goddesses that were like displayed there. Just trashed them all. Why? Because they were symbolic representations of these other gods, right? Well, who cares? Who cares if there's like statues of Buddha or statues of Jesus or, you know, things like that. Think about music. If music has the power to incarnate a response in our flesh, do you guys think any of these idols have any less power over being able to incarnate in that fashion? I mean, this is like a big deal in the majority of religions, right? Because if you make a thing that's like the God, you guys know what happens? The God shows up. Invocation. It's like we're talking about, this happens to me all the time, and I love it. You guys know that saying, speak of the devil? It's really good. Speak of the devil. So when you say the devil's name, he's there, right? This has happened to me so many times. James, I know I got your email. Every time James and Nora are together and they say my name, I show up. We need to like make a track record of it, or like experimentation or something like that. And like a really good one too happened to me at Cafe Flore. Is Denise here? I don't think she's here today, but she was talking to Featherbeard and they said my name and it came through the door and it was like, yeah, totally worked, invocation style. You know? And how many times have you guys said like your friend's name and then your cell phone's like, damn. Speak of devil. You say the name of the thing is there. Which that's crazy, okay? Like how on earth is like this, you say this, and I'm here. Right? What? How does that work? You say this and then I show up? That's magic, you guys. That's like the heart of what magic is. You say the word and then the thing is. You guys know the word for that is incarnation. Incarnation. You guys were all incarnated. And that's why we're all hanging out here, sitting here. You know? Because we were incarnated. You say a word and it becomes flesh. And the incarnation story comes to us from Mr. Jesus. Okay? Mr. Jesus was known in the book of John as the Word made flesh. You guys all heard that, right? Like growing up, you're like, oh yeah, the Word made flesh, whatever, Jesus. I'm gonna go like watch cartoons or whatever. You know, everyone kind of hears that, but then when I heard that, I was like, what does that mean? The Word made flesh? Like, what are they talking about? So you read a little bit in John. Where it comes from, that quote is actually from John 1:14, and it says, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. It's a pretty crazy thing to say, right? You say the name of the thing, and then it is. And have you guys ever looked at the name of Jesus in Hebrew? Anybody seen it? Yeshua? Do you guys know what the letters are? Yeah. It's the tetragrammaton with a shin in the middle. For those of you non-Hebrew savvy folks, the tetragrammaton is the four-letter word of God, right? The name of the God. Not just the name of the God, but the ineffable, unspeakable, it's so big and crazy you can't even say it name, right? Because that's like the whole Kabbalah and Jewish magic, where the majority of magic in the West comes from. Like any of you guys have read any book on magic? I don't care if it's like, you know, from Tinkerbell to Dion Fortune to Crowley to whatever, Kabbalah's in there somewhere, I promise you. You know, no matter what. Because that's just where a lot of it comes from. And so, magic in Kabbalah, you guys know what it is? You just say names of God, and then stuff happens. You say names of God when you want something to happen, and then it goes. It's there. It incarnates. Right? So, how does that work? How do you say, like, you know, Jesus Christ, and then like something like appears, something happens? How do you say the devil's name? And like, you know, If you're like, you know, some of those nefarious characters that invoke demons or devils, those sorts of things, which I advise against because they stop listening to you. They make things go. They make things happen. How can you just say stuff and then it happens? Well, have you guys ever said something and then it happened? We like almost so many people nodded their head. Just from saying something and then it's like, maybe it's not like right then that second, but like a year, 2 years, and you're like, oh my God, I totally said that at, you know, Janie's house to you, and now here it is, it's happening, it's going, right? So what you say, yeah, you guys totally, I know you guys have. And I mean, if that's ever happened to you, you know, first of all, you have to be careful what you say. And that's the whole careful what you wish for thing, you know. But also, you learn that words have power because they can formulate, they can construct, they can make things happen. Everything you say is like a prayer, whether you like it or not, because words contain the power of creation. If you believe that some of these geometrical shapes have power, which ones don't? Which ones aren't good? Is there like a difference? Like, oh, these words are super powerful, but those are just like, you know, like your spleen or something. These words are like your heart, and those are like your spleen. They're not really good for much. They don't really count. No, they all are. You don't really get any freebies, which is like, oh, so much responsibility, you know? But the other part in John that starts to make sense for how this all goes is the very beginning of it, which is John 1:1, which says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So it basically says that they're the same thing. There's no difference between Word and God. What? And then, you know, I know that sounds crazy, especially when you hear a lot of people talk, that's for sure. But have any of you guys like thought about where language comes from? Is there any linguists hanging out here that have looked into it? Like, how do we figure out this whole talking business anyway, right? How am I doing what I'm doing? It's very intricate and goes into a long history, like. And linguists, they don't really know. They have a lot of ideas, but no one's really sure. But you guys know, in the esoteric and occult stories, you guys know who started language? Hermes, the same guy that did the music thing, right? Wait, music and word and symbol all came from the same guy. And they were all doing the same thing, right? And you guys, this is like my favorite thing ever. Do you guys know where Hermes learned language? From a fiery serpent with wings. Yeah. Called Poimanders. Poimanders is a big snake with wings. And that's like where we get caduceus. You know, when you guys go to the doctor and you see the caduceus. Comes from, that's the guy that taught us how to talk. Is that caduceus that you go see when you go to the doctor? That's the guy that gave us the words, right?
What's a caduceus?
Caduceus is the two snakes that intertwine together on a stick, and then there's wings that go on the top, right? And then, you know, if you look at and study, what are language groups? Okay, it gets nuts. Like, there's some really good websites that'll show you, like, these tree branches of all the different, like, little guys that go in these different directions, depending on what area you're in, and then they kind of will all meet up at certain points, but then there's still like different points that separate it. Kind of like how there's plants and then animals and then fungus is like in the middle, or it's not really either one. It's like some weird alien. Well, it's the same with like languages. Like they can kind of say like, well, these are kind of like these and these are kind of like these. So you can say like, this is like The Cure and this is like, you know, emo. But wait, those are kind of the same, so we can kind of put them together. But then this, we don't even know what this like Norwegian music is. Like, so we gotta stick it over there because it's not really anything like anything else, right? They can't like see the overlapping pattern contained in some of them, right? So some of these things are not like the other things, but some of them are kind of like the other things. And then they'll break it into these different groups, you know. And then, of course, in the Bible, there was that story of Babylon. You guys know, like, the Tower of Babel? So, I mean, they think there was, like, at one point, this one language that this big fiery serpent told us how to say. And then we got in trouble because we got a little too big for our britches. And then they were like, no, you guys can't all be the same, can't all talk the same, because you'll figure out too much stuff. So then they just scattered the language, right? So that when you meet someone that's Russian and they talk to you, you can't say you're like me, you know? So then we start to separate. We can't go together because there's this rift. Can't communicate, can't feel the same feelings as someone in Norway that's into death metal if you're like really into emo music, right? Even though your zygotes were probably pretty similar looking. And that's very much like the symbols, like how a swastika, for example. You know, it's a very loaded symbol. I know a lot of people get very upset when you even say the word swastika. But that's a good example. Like, in some languages, the swastika does not mean what it's been made to mean, right? So basically what happened was the swastika is an incarnation that was made by a Nazi magician to become a thing, right? And they did that with not even a word, but a symbol. They usurped a symbol that meant something very different and made it turn into a thing, which was the Nazis, right? Just with a symbol. Just those geometric lines on a piece of paper created like the whole to-duty as a thing, you know? But you guys know, like, the swastika goes back like thousands of years. Like, they don't even know how many thousands, because it's in the Vedas, which date to something like, you know, 4,000 BC or something stupid like that. And then it's been found, like, written on things even before that. All over China, all over India, all over Asia, you know. And yet, because of single, like, few hundred guys in Germany, around the entire world it's become incarnated as something else. Erased, like, thousands of years of history of this thing being something, and now it's become incarnated into something else. And that, again, is another, like, thing with magic, how we have to be careful what we're creating, because you take a thing, and then you make it not the thing, by things you say. Just like if you get your heart broken, you've been listening to too much Cure, you can make your ex-boyfriend into a thing that he's not that thing. You're like, oh, that jerk, like all these things he did wrong. He did this wrong, he did that wrong. He's this demon now. And now what happened? You have a phantom. You just made a phantom. And you know, I looked up idolatry. You guys know idolatry is a pretty good word. I think it would be a good band name. So idol, the word idol actually comes from this Greek word eidolon, which means apparition or phantom. Apparition or phantom, right? So for those of you guys that went to the Eros lecture, this was like last year, I think, or something, we know that when you're thinking about someone, and you're thinking about them, especially in a romance way, right? Eros is the best way to put a lot of attention and strength onto something. So you got a crush on someone, you're thinking about them, maybe you're like thinking about this name. Hope you aren't making me a phantom. You're thinking about this name, and so you're making this thing. And now there's like a phantom me, which your brain has made from thinking about this stuff. So there's like some phantom me floating around out there in the thought form world, which is nothing like what me is right here talking, right? That's how we construct apparitions, right? We idolize, which comes from image also, which image is what? Like vision, imagine. When we imagine, we're seeing like this thing. We're making some visual like thing out of a symbol. This idol. Represent. Represent. this vision in your brain now represents me. How do you represent something? Right? Like we have a lot of representatives. You know, I'm here representing this. I represent blah, blah, blah. That's like all over LA. Everybody's representing something, you know? And when you look at what represent words, it means re-present. Re-present. So we're going back to the present by saying we're there again. And present, this is very interesting. It means in existence, in a current moment of time. From pre-essay, being there, here, now. So when you represent something, like with an idol, you make the thing there now in the present moment. Right? Now, when you represent, I am this thing here now. Right? That's what those idol statues that Muhammad cut all the faces off. Because when you have those idols there, the God is there right there now. Because those are there. Represent. Right? The heart, the feel, the symbol of the thing has now become incarnated because of the phantom. Right? And with re-present, it's very specific because it's about a current moment of time. Current means now, right? So then I look up real or actual, because like what's reality then? How are we going to represent? This thing is there now. Okay, so does that mean it's real? Well, real means at this time or present. Right? So it's here. So as long as you are keeping something like alive in the time, if you keep that phantom, feed that phantom, now it's like living in the time. And so that ex-boyfriend that you can't let go of, you're keeping the phantom alive by feeding it symbolical representation, right? You are symbolically creating an entity, an idol, that is now suddenly very much a reality because it's present in this moment in time. Okay, so then you get like a baked noodle a little bit because you're like, well, does that mean past and future aren't real? Is it just like, is it all that Eckhart Tolle business? The power of now. The guy's so cheesy, but so if real, this is what it's saying. It says that real, reality, is the current present moment in time. Current moment. And that's it. Well, so your reality of you is what? Just this right now? Not zygote you, not skeleton you, when you die, no other moment in time? But see, now we gotta make our brains bigger and think about what time is. Because if we're making time into different separate moments, then we're gonna run into problems. And now we're making representations of ourselves. What if time is like all those moments all together in one thing that's always there, that always goes? Now it's like getting a little more magical, a little better. That's why you can play that Cure song and go back to that past moment in time and suddenly it's present again. Because time and symbol and word get really mixed up when you start getting into it. Like when you said that thing that came true, it didn't happen in that present moment, did it? Like right, it hardly ever does. Unless that speak of the devil thing, right? Which is so good. I love it when it's like, bam! You say like, Maja, and I'm like, hi! It's totally happened a few times. It's like crazy. I love it. But so, what about those other times when it's like, oh, I just said your name like 5 hours ago? Because that happens too. Does that mean it's not real? You know? Because you loved somebody in a moment of time, but now you don't, does that mean that the love wasn't real? No. Never, right? So I think the thing that jacks us up with this is that we forget that present is all past and future, everything all together. Can't start separating it, right? Zygote is always. Skeleton is always. We contain the same components of it every moment that we're alive. Right? In every moment, all those things we are. So like, I think it would be cool if, you know how some people on Facebook, if they're like 43, they'll put up pictures of themselves when they're like 25. Because they're representing, right? Gotta represent. This is what I look like, really. Or like on the dating sites or whatever. People are total magicians on those things. Right? Like, this is me. See? And they're totally making a phantom out of themselves. You know? What if I want people on their Facebook to put zygote pictures?
Young moms do that.
Yeah, or like, yeah, they totally do. Or like, you know, x-rays of their bones. This is totally me. And it would be true, it would be real. You know? So then you gotta like figure out, okay, what image, what symbol am I invoking in myself, right? Because you guys are all magicians. So now we're gonna think about like, how are we going to like figure out positive ways to invoke these symbols to make these our present realities that somehow contain all the parts of us, right? We're not gonna fractionate ourselves. We're gonna have it be all that. And we're gonna love all of our exes and futures. And we're gonna be cool with what our parents did when we were kids. And we're gonna include that in part of our experience. Instead of like cutting it out because we don't like that part, we're just gonna show ourselves when we were 23. Because we like that little piece of time, right? That little phantom sliver, you know? I mean, geez, what if like the guys in Hanson did that to themselves? That was just me when I was in Hanson. Just that like little moment right there, that was me. Or like when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader. You know, even though now I'm like, whatever you turn into when you're a cheerleader in high school, I don't know. Oh yeah! That's good. I like it. So yeah, you can do anything, but people will identify and symbolize themselves in those moments of time. And now you're like an idol statue at Solomon's temple, and you gotta wait for Muhammad to come around and cut your face up until you can actually be who you are. You know? There's this really good, I know I talk about him a few times, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen this book. It's called I Am Not My Body, I Am the Soul by Sri Chinmoy. You guys ever hear of Sri Chinmoy? I love these crazy Indian guys. It's like this little old Indian man, he passed away now, but he was famous. His group, his ashram, broke more Guinness World Records than anybody else. Because in his brain he said, this body, this is not me. I'm my soul, you know? Who cares? I'm like 80 years old. I'm going to go run 2 marathons in a row. And he would break records for running marathons at over 80 years old. He was like, this is like my meat suit. It's just going, but I'm driving. Right? This is like, I represent my soul. My meat suit isn't representing anything. Right? And he was like kind of fat too. But he could just go. It didn't make any difference. You know? It's not like he was a superhero. He was just an old Indian dude. And he broke records for weightlifting. If you guys go on YouTube, there's this great, he's like, you know, he just goes up, like shuffles up. And on one of the YouTube videos, there's this huge, like, Schwarzenegger dude, and he's like, yeah, I love Sri Chinmoy, like, it's real inspiration to me. And so Sri, like, it's true. Sri, like, gets up there, and he's like, oh, like, laughing, you know, and he just, like, gets under there, and he's like, and he lifts it, like, 2 inches, but he lifts, like, tremendous amount of weight, like, off the ground. It's, like, miracle stuff. He breaks skin, and all these scientists are there, like, yeah, we don't know, you know, he's just, like, crazy Indian guy. And all these people are watching, and like, you know, it's very well documented. So what does he feel like represents himself? Not his body, you know, it's there, and it can do whatever his brain wants it to do, you know. But he's not, you know, I'm sure he didn't put like pictures of him when he was 23 up on his Facebook. You know? 'Cause he didn't have that like problem,
Yeah.
you know, like we have. The ego, the snowflake, the specialitis, you know. We all get it. I do too, you know. I'm really looking forward to being an old lady. I think it's going to be. So, I think then, when we look at the implications of what it means to have these symbols that are powerful expressions, you know, we have to like consider a couple of things, and you guys can totally call each other out too. Like if you guys see each other misrepresenting, you can be like, "Hey, that's not you," you know. And we symbolically represent ourselves in so many ways. Like again, you go back to the X thing, right? So a lot of times we'll misrepresent ourselves as victimized, right? That's like the #1 thing that happens when love goes bad. We go like, oh, it's like a tragedy. He did this to me, and they did that to me, and it was all like to me. If you listen to so many pop songs, it's all you did this to me, you did this to me, you did this to me. Like it's the same line over and over, you know. But the triumphant songs, they go, I did this, and I did this, and I did that, right? Responsibility and representation, right? And if you want to think that you are some moment in time that occurred to you, some experience that you had symbolically, like the cheerleader, okay? You're like, that experience in time, that's me. That's like, you know, or like, you know, maybe this is like you, right? Maybe you had this experience, okay? There's a lot of people that had this experience. And then this is them. But you know, some of my favorite, when I was in high school, I'll never forget this woman, because she would say, you never forget, that's the most important thing. She was an Auschwitz survivor. And she's this old Jewish lady, and her hair was like dyed black, and then she had this streak of white. She was so cool. And she was like this little short woman, and she got up to speak in front of the whole, like, you know, assembly, our whole high school. And she was like, yeah, I survived Auschwitz. I was in Auschwitz. I saw everything, but I am not Auschwitz. I was there and experienced it, and it happened to me, and it becomes part of my story, but it is not me. You know? And that was like, whoa. So, like, I was like, if I can ever get, like, somewhere close to how rad she is, like, then maybe I'll be, like, almost there. You know? Because these emotional, visceral, carnal, incarnated responses that we get symbolized by, which often are related to what? To pain, suffering, love, joy, hopefully. It's not always bad. Some people affiliate themselves with like, yeah, I totally won that football game, 1986, got touchdowns. It's like, yeah, I won. And that's their symbol, you know? It's who they are. I'm that guy that got the touchdown, you know? So it's not always like, I'm that girl that Elvis Presley broke my heart. That's me. You know, it's not always that story. There's lots of stories. But the truth is, the reality is that if anything is like anything else, this is the like real magical thing, you guys. If anything is like anything else, if I'm like you, if our zygotes are alike, right? You think any of us are those like single experiences that happen to us along the way? You know? If we're like at a certain point, if everything contains that singularity of same existence, how are we differentiated by this like stuff that happens to us as our cells keep like rolling down the road, as the zygote keeps like turning into all this stuff and then like, you know, going into bone? That secret is a very alchemical one. You guys know, like, Prima Materia? That's another good band name, yes. You guys looking. Prima, it's more Norwegian death metal though. Prima Materia in alchemy is this concept that there is a single point that you can break anything down to where all things are one. There is a single point that all things can be broken down to where all matter is one, is the same. Now I know that's like a giant thing to fit inside your brain, but you can see it in your body. Like you guys know your fingernail cell. If you take a little cell guy out of your fingernail, inside that cell is all the information for every other cell in your body. From that cell you can make a liver cell, you can make a pancreas cell, you can make a brain cell, you can make, this is like how stem cell research is happening, you know. All of you is contained in a single cell inside your body. Any part of you, pick whatever, it doesn't matter, eyelash, you know, hair, it's pretty freaky because my hair gets all over the place, so I leave parts of me everywhere I go. There's like my friend, they had some friend of theirs riding in their car and they were like, what is this? They haven't met me, they like couldn't figure it out. But you leave like these parts of yourself everywhere you go, and your cellular information, you know, is all in there. Everything to make another you. You can make an idol of you because of the prima materia in your cell. Okay? That's how we do like cloning. You guys know like cloning is like idol style. You know? It's like you. Is it like you? This is where like science fiction novels start going. Okay? If you take one of your cells and you make another you, is it like you? Is it going to do the same things, or the same things going to happen to it? Is it going to have the same emotional response to the cure? Or is it going to hate the cure and like Norwegian death metal? You know? Oh no, now we have existential dilemma. Now we have like 20 science fiction novels. Right? Oh, but that essence, that thing it started from, is reducible to the same thing. To the same thing. And again, we want to think if somebody made a clone of us, it wouldn't be like us because we have specialitis, right? But you guys are all clones. You guys are clones of your parents, of your grandparents, of your great-grandparents. You guys think what you're doing is like super different from your parents? I know it's terrible. Do you guys think that the way you relate to, you know, your girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, pets, think it's different than the way your parents relate to each other? Oh no, such a terrible thought sometimes. But you guys are clones. You know? Look at your parents. You want to see something like you? You guys have the same last name. Right? So if you're going to hold up one of these geometrical symbols, you put your whole name on a paper, part of that is somebody else. Your parents. Part of your little special song, your special frequency, your special invocation. Right? Every time you show up, guess who else shows up? Your mom, your dad, grandparents, great-grandparents. Because you know what? They're all contained. Every time I leave a piece of my hair, you know who else gets left there? My mom, my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. All the way back to Lucy in Africa. It's all in there. It's in the junk DNA, which is 90% of the DNA. Right? It's your ancestral history, which you guys know, like these crazy scientists. They're called Evo Devos. It's a pretty good band name too. So many today. They figured out that DNA in everything, like living organisms, right, has like this certain set, they call it Hox genes. And they found out it's the same in like everything, has these Hox genes. Again, it's a like Prima Materia. You guys know what they did with these Hox genes? It's so crazy. So they took like, there's a little part that's like for eyes. So they took the little eye, Hox gene, out of a fly, and they put it in a pig. You guys know what happened? It didn't grow a fly eye, it grew a pig eye. What? How does that happen? Because the Prima Materia. It's translatable. Right? There's a certain part of our genetic history that goes all the way back to when DNA started on planet Earth. Not just with Lucy in Africa, but with zygotes, with single-celled organisms. And the history of that DNA genetic material is all contained in the Hox genes that's in every cell in your body. So, oh my God, now when a piece of my hair gets left behind, it's not just my mom, it's not just my dad, it's not just my grandparents, it's like amoebas. They were like with dinosaurs. Oh, so crazy. And it's true. If you guys took a piece of my hair, you could open up my Hox genes, and then you could put like an eye in a fly. That freaks me out. And you guys can do it too. If you guys took your hair, you could take part of it out, you can make an eye on a fly. Okay? So that power of creation, of incarnation in our flesh, that word, that symbol, that word that's God, that's in all of us, we can invoke and identify and idolatrize in any way we want. If we want to be like able to run marathons when we're 80 years old, we just do it if you symbolize yourself in that manner. If you symbolize yourself as a broken, beaten, heartachy victim, you're probably going to be a broken, beaten, heartachy victim. Listen, if that lady from Auschwitz could be so awesome, I don't know that you guys cannot be that awesome. Right? It's a lot of work. But it's possible. We all have that possibility because you know why? Because the Prima Materia that's in the Jewish gal in Auschwitz is the same Prima Materia that you got in you. Prima Materia in Sri Chimnoy is the same one you got in you. It's not made out of some alien material that you guys don't have. You know? It's the same thing. So start switching up your song a little bit to invoke those parts of yourselves that are in the present moment, that extend past and future, however, whichever point you want. Pick any point and integrate it as part of it, right? And you can write a poem. You can write a song. You can write your name. You can write whatever you want. Whatever you want, right? And look at what you're writing. How many of you guys keep journals? That's not enough. I have some journals from when I was like 15 years old. They're so awesome because you can look at the words that you wrote and that was like who you were then. You know? Those feelings, that experience, that expression, same soul, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I just did the same thing like last week. So weird. Read back over your journals. Represent. Be present. Right? Bring them back. Make some comebacks of things. Reintegrate. Right? But keep all of those things flowing and moving in who you are right now. Otherwise, you get stuck in like the touchdown guy and the cheerleader guy. Right? And then it's a phantom of something that was like a representation, an idol of who you are. That's how you make magic of yourself, of your identity. So that's what I have for today. Thanks, you guys.